Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for tonight's public webinar. My name is Kerry Tocock. I'm the Head of Customer and Communications at Wiltshire Council. If you wish to see closed captions of our speakers' words this evening, please click on the CC button on the bottom of the screen. They should appear after 30 seconds or so. The system sometimes takes a little while to get warmed up. If you have any technical issues, they're usually solved by closing down the meeting link and then rejoining. Our main speakers tonight will be Councillor Ian Thorne, Wiltshire Council Leader, and Councillor Gavin Grant, Cabinet Member for Finance. You're welcome to submit a question to be answered using the chat function, and please also leave your name. Our speakers will verbally answer as many questions as they're able to later on. Some of you have also pre-submitted questions. Thank you very much for that. We'll also try to answer as many of those as we can this evening. I'll now pass you over to Gavin. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, Kerry, for that kind introduction. Council budgets are challenging things, and they're also quite technical things, but it's not lost on me, with having the privilege and pleasure of looking after your hard-earned money that you pay in council tax, and those of you who run businesses pay in business rates, that they also impact very directly through the services we provide on you, your families, and your communities. So I hope tonight you're going to get a good understanding of how we work out the budgets that we are presenting, where your money gets spent, that's certainly an important goal, and some of the factors that influence the decisions we're making when we're putting the budget together. Everything that we're doing in putting the budget together and going forward in Wiltshire is governed by the Our Wiltshire plan. That was the plan that was adopted by the new council, of which I have the privilege of being a member. Looking after your money, public money, is very important, and my ethos is that we drive to provide value for every hard-earned pound that you contribute to this council. And frankly, right now, that's never been more important or more crucial. Tonight, I'm going to take you through, and I'll be joined by Ian, on the context of the council's budget, the challenges we face in a financial climate, which I'm sure you know is more and more difficult. I know it is for many families and businesses in our community, and it's within that context that we have to work to put our budget together. We'll also talk you through the funding we receive, or candidly we don't receive, from government. We'll go through the headlines of our proposals in the draft budget, including where we're going to be spending your money, and importantly, the savings we need to make. And these are savings not seen on this scale in Wiltshire before. And we'll take you behind the scenes a little as to the rationale of how we set the council tax and the money we're going to use in capital expenditure to strengthen and improve our communities and the county of Wiltshire. Most importantly, and we've got time set aside for it, tonight will be a real opportunity for you to ask us the questions that you need clarification on and information about. So please do ask that. I think there's a chat function set up to allow you to do that. The next step, after listening to you and having gone through processes of scrutiny with councillors asking questions, will be for me to put together our budget proposals in final form and present them to our next cabinet meeting, which takes place next Tuesday, the 3rd of February. From there, we then go to the full council meeting on the 24th of February, where all 98 of us elected to represent you in Wiltshire will gather together and decide what's going to happen as far as the detail and the actuality of the budget itself, and of course, very importantly, the council tax that will be set on that day and that will come into play for you to pay. So let me talk to you a few moments about where do we spend all this money and what does it get spent on here in Wiltshire? Some of you have seen this before. We spent quite a long time in 7 sessions around our county in different county towns, talking to you as individuals as you came along about how we spend your money on libraries, on leisure centres, on emptying your bins. You can see the detail in front of you on the screen there. Importantly, we also spent time talking with our staff, the people at the sharp end of this, who are responsible for spending this money on your behalf, delivering the services that are so important to our county. I have to say, these were really informative and production sessions with you and with our staff. And also, the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Mel Jacob, and I had a great evening with the young people of Wiltshire, Wiltshire's Youth Council, listening to them and their aspirations for the future. I hope you're going to be reassured by what we're saying to you, that your county is in safe hands. We ask a simple question in these sessions about what are the services that are most important to you. And you can see on your screens now those empty plastic boxes. People were given a green token to drop into those boxes to say the things which really, really matter to them. But we also shared with them the challenges that were faced, and we're going to share some of those with you tonight. And so we gave them a red token and said, now, which of these, if we have to make efficiencies and cuts, which of these areas would you like us to focus on? I can tell you, because I attended every single one of those sessions, and you can see me in one of them in the other side of the screen, that people took a long time to decide where to drop that red token. And I found it fascinating in looking where they put the green ones and the red ones. What that said to me is you really do value, as the people of Wiltshire, the services that are provided to you and to some of the most vulnerable people in that county who perhaps you never see. And you also realise just how tough it is to try and balance the books here in Wiltshire. That exercise, if you like, is a microcosm example of what we as Cabinet have been doing, as I've been spending my time with my Cabinet colleagues who have these responsibilities, talking to them about what we need to do. We also heard from a lot of you online. Over 2,500 of you took part in this consultation. 3 key priorities emerged from it, and they were the same whether we were meeting our staff or people, residents of Wiltshire, in our libraries, leisure centres and other locations, or whether you came to us online and gave us that information. Those top 3 priorities, and I don't think there are any great surprises here, were families and children, education and adults. And when you look at the expenditure of Wiltshire Council, what you see, of course, is these are the 3 big blocks of where we spend your money. We also got a range of really informative feedback. People could fill in information freehand on cards at the physical locations and online as to what they thought might be great ideas for us in Wiltshire to look at. So they asked us, you asked us, please review the assets you hold, the physical buildings and areas of land that you hold at Wiltshire. Look at your usage of office space and how you can be more efficient in that. Take a close look at the non-statutory, the things we're not required to do in law, but we like to do, and those services that don't generate income for us as a council, and there are many of those that do. These were really constructive, thoughtful ideas, and I want to thank every single one of you that took part, and all of you who brought great ideas to the table. We really value public engagement. And we've ensured that the feedback and the ideas you gave to us have been fully considered in the decision-making processes around this budget, and you may even recognise in the detail of some of it, some of the ideas you came up with. So I want to thank each and every one of you that took part in that, and the contributions, the time, effort and energy that you took to spend some time with us, reflecting on what really matters, and where, if we're going to have to make economies, and we're certainly going to have to do that, where those economies should take place, and for your detailed thoughts about how we can be even more efficient and effective as a Wiltshire Council. Now, I wonder if my leader, Ian Thorne, Councillor Ian Thorne, might be ready just to take a few moments to set the context of the budget that we're now going to take you through.
This is really a critical part of the context in terms of where we find ourselves and the challenges that we face. The national funding picture is absolutely challenging, to say the least, particularly for rural authorities like Wiltshire. The government has just carried out what they describe as a fair funding review for local councils. Yes, they may have had a review, but we don't believe it to have been particularly fair, nor has it resulted in much extra funding for this council. What you can see on screen is where our money comes from. Or the government has said that nationally core spending power which is the amount government says councils will need to deliver their services, has risen by 5.7%. Wiltshire's, I'm sad to say, is just 4.5%. And when you strip out the council tax, which government is assuming will be charged at the highest amount available, at an increase of 4.99%. When you take into account that general inflation is around 3.18%. This means that we don't have much flexibility in the money available to us. Now, some government grants that are specific and dedicated are also being rolled out into what is known as the Revenue Support Grant, which again reduces flexibility. A grant known as the Recovery Grant, and I'm sorry for some of the technical jargon, continues nationally, but we're not receiving any share of it this year, which for us is significant. While we're not anticipating any big changes, we will know that the final confirmed local government finance settlement from government until mid-February, which means we'll be able to confirm some of our educated assumptions, but not until then. Something I'm sure you'll all be familiar with in your own lives at home is the pressure that rising inflation continues to play. Inflation has consistently been high in recent years and not moving in line with the Bank of England assumptions, and that makes long-term planning extremely difficult. That puts pressure on our own bills, but also the contracts for the services and providers that we have to procure, which has a particular impact on the care services we provide. Another change that came in recently was an increase in employers' contributions to national insurance. The government had confirmed that councils will be compensated for these costs, but I'm sad to say the reality is different. The government will cover around 3.2 million, when in fact our actual costs are closer to 4. Also, the assumption is only for our own council employees and does not compensate for the providers and suppliers we contract. This includes adult social care and children's services, amongst others. I'll now pass back to Gavin to go through the biggest areas of council spend.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. So as you can see, the context in which we're operating is a pretty tough one. So let me take you to the details of where we're going to be spending your money. Well, firstly, the overall spend draft that we're proposing is a council budget of £567 million. Now that's a £40 million increase on what we've been spending in the current financial year 25-26. And on the screen, you can now see those big ticket items. If you remember back to where the priorities that you said to us were, where you're seeing we're going to be following exactly those issues here. Adult social care is the number one item there. That's roughly 40p in the pound of every pound you're contributing here at 224 million. That's 30 million pounds up on this year because of the pressures that we're seeing in the growth and demand and the complexity of some of these social care packages that we need to provide to look after our most vulnerable of citizens in Wiltshire. Next one up is families and children, £79 million. That's a £4 million increase on the £75 million that we've been spending this year. Environment, and you notice that in the bracket there it says waste. Well, that's well, as I say, rubbish to you and me. You know what I mean. That's the bins that we put out, the recycling centres, and so on and so forth. Now that's up a big chunk of money there, £12.5 million. Why is that? Well, because we've had 6 new waste contracts to negotiate, and funnily enough, Ian was talking about inflation a few moments ago and the other pressures that are leading to cost rises. Those firms have faced those problems as well, and so in those new contracts, despite tough negotiations, they're more expensive than they were before for us. So the environment, including waste, that's £62 million worth of your money that's being spent there. And then back to that priority around education skills, schools for most of us, is another £41 million, up 38 from 38 million. So a £3 million increase. So as you cast your eye down there, you can see of that 40 million quid that overall that it's going up, almost all of it is being absorbed in these 4 specific areas. So while our priority is to absolutely support those who need us the most in that county, it's not lost on me that there are many other important things that we need to be doing as well. So here you see for every £100 of your council tax where it's going, and the lion's share of it is going on supporting the most vulnerable adults and young people in our community. And you can see that £62 out of every 100 is going in that direction and in supporting education in our county. And you can see the other items in front of you there. So if that's what we're spending it on, maybe we can now have a look at where are we getting the money from that allows us to do that spend for you. So we receive about 84%, 84p in the pound comes from council tax and business rate. And let me just clear up something about business rates, because a lot of business holders in Wiltshire who keep our high streets vibrant, who employ people in our county, are worried about what's happening within business rates. Well, here's the first point. We don't set the business rate. That's decided by government. And here's the next point. For every pound that we collect in business rates, 72 pence of it finds its way to the government. Wiltshire only keeps 28p in the pound on business rates. We recognise that your budgets are under real pressure. Ian alluded to that a few moments ago. But we are absolutely dependent on increases in the council tax to fund those important services that you saw a few moments ago in our communities and for the most vulnerable in our communities. And therefore, this is the proposal that we're going to be putting to the full council, which shows a 2.99% increase in council tax for the generality of our spend, and 2% increase for what's referred to as the adult social care levy. Now that can only be spent in that area. That, by the way, will raise £7.4 million, as you can see on the screen in front of you. But if you think about it, the numbers I put up just now, the increase in adult social care is £28 million. So this barely covers off a quarter of that increase. Now, the way council tax is defined is around band D, and we all know which homes of our homes are in which band in the council tax, but council tax is decided by the band D number. That's the same for every local authority in the country. So what does this mean if you're in band D? Well, this is an increase of £1.81 a week. It will take the annual charge for band D up to £1,981.15. Now, it's obvious to say not everybody lives in a band D house, and there are plenty of council tax bands, but that increase of 4.99% is the increase you're going to see when the budget is set in the new financial year in comparison to what you've been paying in this financial year. Now, having covered off what's going on with the council tax, let me be clear with you that we are driving for efficiency, increased effectiveness, and absolutely value for money in everything we do. I take very seriously my responsibilities towards you and towards the businesses of this county to ensure that your money is being spent wisely and effectively. And by law, we have to deliver a balanced budget. So with that lack of support from government and the lack of enough money coming in from other sources for everything we'd like to do, we have to be clear that we have to make savings. So where are these savings coming from and what are they amounting to? Well, you can see we're having to save a whopping £29.4 million. And that's made up of two components, £24.1 million of new savings and £5.3 million that were agreed in last year's budget, but which frankly are not going to be delivered. Let me be clear. We have the equivalent of savings accounts in Wiltshire. You save money for the rainy day, so do we. And there's been plenty of rainy days of late, and they're called reserves, and they're put into for emergencies and problems that the county might face, the risks that it hasn't anticipated. Let me be crystal clear. We will cut our cloth according to what we have. We are not going to be using reserves to balance the budget in 26-27. And our brilliant finance team have a legal responsibility, the top person in that team, for having a look at the risks that this council faces financially and saying what is the right level of reserve to be held. And that risk assessment says we need to hold £34 million, and £34 million is exactly what we are going to be holding. So in that context, there was a big challenge here for the council's leadership team to find efficiency savings and to look everywhere on everything that we could possibly do, while focusing on the preventative measures and early help that is so important, particularly in adult services and children's services. So we're going to be redesigning things in the way that Wiltshire works and does things going forward, in a way which delivers even more efficient and effective services. We don't have any choice, and it's, by the way, the right thing for us to be doing. We're also taking a look at vacancies which have existed on our staff roster and have not been filled. And where they've not been filled, they're going to be removed. And about £1 million has been identified and saved in that way. Most of us, and I'm quite long in the tooth, frankly, are getting used to the notion of artificial intelligence, of AI, and the way it can be effectively used to support services. And we're certainly going to be doing that. And the same with automation in some of the roles. You told us, look at your assets and make the best use of them. Well, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So we're looking at our land, our buildings, and seeing how can we generate money? How can we use them even more effectively than we are now? How can we cut costs in those particular areas? And let me give you some examples. And these are examples of investment. So we're going to be investing in new children's homes and supported accommodation. Why are we going to do that? Well, because if they're going outside of our county or elsewhere, that costs us more money. And it's better for those young people to be closer to their communities, closer to their families, closer to their friends, closer to the places they know. That's a real win-win. Better for those young people and better for you, the council taxpayers of Wiltshire. We sign up to a lot of contracts. It's called procurement. And we want to ensure that every single one of those contracts is providing maximum value for money for the cash, which is your cash, that this council is expending. We're also going to be, and I'm sorry to say it, but we're going to do it, we're going to be increasing fees and charges, which in line with inflation. We can't afford to hold them below inflationary levels because the costs of running them are going up. And in all of this, we are determined to protect those who need us most, those vulnerable adults and young people. And I promise you, we are going to be as efficient as we possibly can be in delivering the quality services that this council has a great reputation for. As I said, those reserves, and you can see them there, set at £34 million, are essential. They're essential to manage the risks we face and to make sure that we are a strong and resilient council. Now, let me move on to some perhaps happier news about where we're going to be investing your money and some of our borrowings to improve things in Wiltshire. And this is a really happy list to go through with you. And perhaps I could hand over to Ian, as I tend to deliver the bad news, and he can really be in the position of delivering the good news. And this is what's called our capital programme. Over to you, Ian.
Gavin, thank you very much. I think, as we said earlier, despite the challenges, and there are enormous challenges for local government and Wiltshire Council, we want to continue to invest in our county. We want to improve a whole range of facilities. We want to attract employers. We want to attract investment. And so alongside the budget proposals, we've also published our proposed 26-27 capital strategy and programme, which is about investing in the things that we think are particularly critical to the future of our county. This outlines how we will manage and invest in the county's infrastructure. It is likely the capital budget may well change throughout the year. Timing on these sorts of projects is absolutely critical, and it's very, very common for timeframes on major capital projects to move, particularly given the breadth of external impacts in delivering such large projects. The proposed budget for 26-27 is around £260 million, and it will be more than £1 billion across future years. £40 million, new house building programme, stock refurbishment. We are a very large landlord, and we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that residents in our homes have the best possible environment, and that we are building more homes for people across our county to ensure that we address as far as we can what is and has been for many years a housing crisis for many, many people. We're placing, as you can see, the figures on screen, £33 million for structural maintenance and bridges. All of these things, I think, to some extent we take for granted, but nonetheless, if we don't maintain, if we don't ensure they are, of course, fit for purpose, then we are creating a liability for ourselves and every resident across the county. We're also intending to spend £15 million on highways improvements. I don't need to be told that the number one issue for many, many residents is potholes. It's one thing that really impacts when people travel around the country and the county indeed, and therefore we're putting our money where our mouth is in terms of doing the best we can to ensure that we improve and ensure that our highways are the best they possibly can. And that, of course, includes resurfacing and the most efficient management of potholes across the county. We're spending £13 million continuing to develop our leisure centres. We've got, for those people in the Trowbridge area, a magnificent leisure centre being built at the moment. We're planning £10.1 million for maintenance and modernisation of schools, because frankly the last type of environment we want for our young people are schools that again aren't fit for purpose, and therefore our commitment to young people is there. Up in the north of the county, we're spending just over or just under £11 million on the A350 Chippenham bypass to ensure that we have a much more efficient use of our network, particularly north-south from the M4. We have £2.7 million we're applying to our Warm Homes project. I think for many people, probably all of us, particularly on a day like today, warm homes are an absolute prerequisite of a happy life, and we will be doing everything we can to improve the homes of residents to make them warmer, and we're applying £1 million on fitness equipment for our leisure centres. It's one of those growth areas which is good for the county, good for residents, good for our welfare, and indeed good in terms of generating revenue, which is a key part, has to be a key part of the future of this council. There isn't much positivity surrounding local government financing at the moment, but despite the challenging constraints that we find ourselves in, I find myself in, the cabinet colleagues, officers, and the entire council find, we are working across the council, will continue to work tirelessly to build on the progress we're making. This includes continuing to develop our Transforming Adult Social Care programme. Adult social care, as Gavin touched on, is the biggest part of our budget. It's a truly wonderful thing that we are, in most cases, living longer and longer. But of course, the longer you live, and I know this like anybody else, the greater challenges we face, and frankly, the greater costs we face. And therefore, it's absolutely critical that we provide an outstanding service that provides the right support and information at the earliest opportunity. And prevention is such a key part, whether it's adults, whether it's young people, in terms of giving people the best opportunities, but also, quite frankly, ensuring that we use our finances in the best possible way. We want to continue making improvements to our highways. In the Department of Transport's latest assessment of local road maintenance performance, we were rated green, which is the top mark, indeed making us one of only 16 councils to receive this top rating. and our draft budget provides additional investment into local highways maintenance. In 2024, pothole reports to the council had fallen by 28% compared to 2024, but we know the roads aren't perfect. We're absolutely not complacent. We believe we're moving in the right direction, but we will continue with an absolutely ceaseless focus to ensure our highway network is right and that we reduce the potholes that residents want to see gone. We're putting the infrastructure in place to transform our waste and recycling, curbside collection services from 2027, giving you the opportunity to recycle even more at home as we look for a big increase in recycling rates. Our recycling rates currently are about 42%. Our new contracts, we believe, will generate about 62% of our total waste to be recycled. And equally, we believe that our new contracts will reduce the amount of waste going to landfill, something I think most of us, if not all of us, hate, from about 13% down to about 3%. So I think there's some very positive news there. Our early help offer, family hubs, and work with the county's young people at risk of coming into care are some of our key areas of strength. As we were discussing in a meeting earlier today, if you get off to a good start as a young person, you have real opportunities. If there are challenges and difficulties, that can affect you for the rest of your life, and we have to play our part in addressing these issues. The Council's Stronger Families team has demonstrated success in preventing 87 children coming into care during 2026. And then Shared Lives, a programme in which people live with and support adults with learning difficulties. It's a type of fostering, but with people with learning difficulties, mental or physical health needs, or are elderly and need support and care to live as independently as possible. We are currently providing more than 50 Shared Lives carers, and if somebody wants to be a Shared Lives carer or might think about it, we'd love to hear from you. So there's a lot of positive work happening across the county. I hope you are reassured. I hope you're reassured that your council tax, your hard-earned money is going to great use. It's our responsibility to set out our position, the services we provide, because we understand at the end of the day the vast majority of the money we receive to provide services in Wiltshire comes from you, council taxpayer. And so finally, I just wanted to say that we have spared talking you through all the proposed budget line by line. If we did that, we'd still be here probably by the weekend. But please do go to the website, take a look at the reports, all the appendices. And the budget's not set in stone. This is the draft budget. It is subject to a very clear and thorough, extremely thorough process of consultation and scrutiny over the coming weeks before any final decisions are made at full council on the 24th of February. And if you have a view, if you have a comment, if you want to contribute, then please do get in touch with us. And I will ensure that I and Gavin and others read, as we absolutely should do, every single contribution, and we'll reply to you, setting out our thoughts and ideas. And as I always say here, none of us have a monopoly on good ideas. So if you have a good idea which we can apply to this budget or indeed future budgets, we'd love to hear from you. So it's going to be a busy few weeks, but I look forward to presenting our proposals as we firmly believe they are in the best interest of you and the communities we serve. Right, I think it's now time, long overdue, for you to ask us questions. Kerry, what questions have come in?
Thank you very much, Ian. So yes, we have now come to the Q&A part of tonight's webinar, and we will do our best to respond to as many questions as we can. So I'll start with the pre-submitted questions. Thank you for those. So the first question is for Ian. It's from John Polhill. Can Wiltshire Council senior officers explain why since May 2025, under the Liberal Democrat leadership, the Council's budget position has changed from ostensibly being balanced to now showing a large deficit?
Well, I think I'll take that if I may. I'm not sure I agree with you. We came into office in May. A few weeks after that, the final year of the previous administration was announced, which provided an overspend of £4.8 million on that year's budget. I can't say I was happy about that, but that's what we inherited. What I can also tell you is that at Cabinet next week, we'll be considering the third quarter outturn for this financial year, which I'm very, very pleased to say will show a predicted underspend for the whole year of about £500,000. So I don't think I quite agree with the proposition or preposition of your question. As far as I'm concerned, we are in the position now as the Liberal Democrat administration to deliver a budget on year which indeed is underspent, which is very, very good news for residents across the county. And what we inherited was indeed an overspend of £4.8 million.
Thank you very much, Ian. So the next question is for Gavin to answer. We've had a number of questions submitted around the proposals to remove funding for link schemes. So we've compiled the questions into one. The various questions have come from Robin Clapp, the chairman of the Corsham Link, Harry Tipple, the deputy CEO of Community First, and from Peter Bishop on behalf of the trustees of Downton Link, and also one from Lucy Davey, who's the treasurer of Amesbury and Boscombe Down Link. So it's quite a long question, but it picks up all the key points raised. Given Wiltshire Council's proposal to withdraw all funding for Community First, including support for the 43 link schemes and community transport groups, and to end community transport operational grants from 2026-27 without prior consultation or a proposed alternative support model, can the Council explain the decision-making process and rationale behind these cuts, especially considering the short notice period provided? In light of the 1,494 volunteers who delivered almost 135,000 hours of support in 2024, valued at £1.6 million, and who enabled nearly 30,000 health-related journeys, as well as the wider 1.6 million economic value of link schemes across Wiltshire, how has the Council assessed the social, economic and health impact on vulnerable residents, volunteers and the sustainability of community transport services? Furthermore, what plans does the Council have to protect elderly and vulnerable residents if services decline or cease because of the funding withdrawal, including impacts on schemes such as DBS checks, mature driver assessments and the Amesbury Hopper? Finally, will the Council reconsider the decision, including exploring alternative options such as reversing free parking for blue badge holders to help maintain support for residents without access to a vehicle? Thank you, Gavin.
Well, thank you, Kerry, and thank you to all those who submitted those questions and to everyone else who's been in touch about the importance of the link scheme. So let me just deal with the end of that question, which is, are you going to see if there's a way of sustaining the link scheme given the budget pressures that are being faced? Yes. That's exactly what we're going to do. The whole point of consultation is to listen to what people have to say. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it at all. So I'm listening very carefully, as is the rest of my Cabinet colleagues, to what you're asking us tonight and what our fellow councillors have said and what those in our community are saying to us about this draft budget. So the answer, are we looking at it again? Yeah. We're looking at it again. Are we going to try and find any way we can to sustain the link scheme? You bet you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. The next question is also for you. It's from Bill Jarvis. From the report issued at the last full council meeting, the analysis recommends termination of the waste contract with Hills, delivering increased flexibility to the management of the waste stream and significant improvement in recycling. However, the outcome, apparently because of budget constraints, is to negotiate a variation to the Hills contract, which extends to 2038. This will place considerable stress on future council finances, require unnecessary investment by the council in Hills plant, which will no longer be viable after 2027, and void any attempt to increase recycling, as Hills will require a minimal waste volume to feed their contract. On simple analysis, if the council takes out a prudential loan to cover the cost of a termination of Hills contract, it may only cost around £1 to £1.5 million per year. This is less than 0.2% of the council's total budget and only 3% of the waste management budget. Looking at the report, this 3% could easily be covered within the savings already demonstrated in the original recommended approach. It would also give significant flexibility in dealing with the waste budget as composition changes and deliver significant recycling benefits, a recommended commitment of the administration. Why then is this administration taking such an imprudent approach, which will inevitably lead to additional costs in the future and heavily constrain the waste management team to feed more waste through hills for the next 12 years?
Well, Bill, thank you for that. A lot of technical stuff in there, so let me try and deal with it. So, whilst there is a case for the early termination of what's called the MBT contract, which would deliver longer-term financial benefits, which you've highlighted, there is a very high cost of a one-off termination fee. And frankly, that is unaffordable, particularly in the light of the financial challenges which Ian and I have shared with you tonight, and not only in this particular coming financial budget, but over what's called the medium-term financial strategy. That's a 3-year period. And again, you're going to see the details of that 3-year period, of which next year's budget is year 1, if you go and have a look at the documents. So, the adopted proposal to vary the existing MBT contract will also deliver significant savings against the so-called do nothing option. We've looked into all of these options in considerable detail. It is not the case that the MBT variation option will require additional investment, given the general principle would be to simplify the MBT operations. So there would be a reduction requirement for waste processing at the site, as it would provide collected residual waste to the NRE incinerator if built, or alternative energy from waste facilities if the NRE was not to progress. Importantly, the continued existence of the MBT contract does not prevent the Council from implementing new recycling initiatives, as demonstrated by the decision also taken at that same Cabinet meeting on the 9th of December to move away from 3 weekly collection of refuse when new statutory collection of food waste and flexible plastics are introduced, as they will be by this administration, in 2027. This step will further increase the amount of curbside collected waste we expect to recycle and further reduce the amount of residual waste available from that point. I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Gavin. We have another question for you, I'm afraid. This one is from Robin Clapp. If the budget is tight, why are we still subsidising public transport, such as buses? This money could be focused on other areas that are being proposed to cut.
Okay, Robin, well, thank you very much for that question. Let me do my best with this one too. So on public transport, we received grant funding from government, and we talked a little bit earlier about how that's not always at the levels that we would want it to be. But this particular grant funding is to support our public transport services. And in a big rural county like Wiltshire, ensuring connectivity and access to those services, and therefore the facilities that you'll be taken to throughout our county, is really important. But we are looking at our less popular bus services. There's a full review of those going on, and I'm not going to predict the outcome of that review. We want to see what the evidence is and what the review shows to us. But if there are some services that need to be ended, okay, we'll probably have to do that as a result of the review. But let me emphasize that nothing at this stage is decided. And indeed, there may well be conditions attached by the Department of Transport, we're seeing this in government quite a lot now, to our forthcoming 3-year funding settlement. And those conditions may well, whatever the review says to us, prevent us from ending any services. So it's not entirely within our own gift, Robin, but thank you for your question, and I hope I've answered it.
Thank you, Gavin. So the next question is for Ian. How are you able to justify 3 weekly bin collections when they're brought in? People will struggle with the amount of household waste that they will have to manage.
Well, thank you. That's, I think, a particularly critical question to the overall approach that we're taking to waste management. I think, as Gavin said a moment or two ago, we will be introducing weekly food waste collections, and I have to say, from my own bin at home, an awful lot of the waste in my, what I always call the black bin, I think it's the grey bin, is food waste. So that'll no longer need to go into the general waste bin, and that tends to be followed by an awful lot of soft plastic. So our view and the experience of local authorities elsewhere is when you move to a specific food waste collection, when you move to a specific flexible plastics collection, that has a significant impact on what goes into the black or the grey bin. And therefore, we have a lot of evidence from other local authorities, and a lot of authorities have gone down this route, that in fact you have a significant reduction in the amount of waste going to black bins. Now, there are 450,000 people that live in Wiltshire. Am I going to guarantee that every single bin will be reduced? No, I'm not, but I think that will be the case in the vast majority of cases. Clearly, if there are particular problems, and I know people have raised with me personally the issue of medical waste, sanitary waste, and how that can be managed, and we're looking at that very carefully. But I would say, given that this is a budget discussion, that the current proposals that we have provides a £12 million pressure on our budget. The original proposals, which included retaining our 2 weekly collection, was absolutely enormous. And I'll always be very honest with people when we're in a situation where, frankly, we cannot afford to do things that perhaps we or indeed some of our residents would like to do. That sadly is not the world we live in. So our experience and our knowledge of other local authorities is that 3 weekly bin collection will work in the vast majority of cases. But clearly, as is the nature of life, we'll keep a very close monitor on all of these things, but we're pretty confident for the vast majority of people, it'll work very well.
Thank you, Ian. That's great. So the next question is for Gavin. How can you sympathise with the tough financial challenges, but also raise council tax and increase fees like garden waste collection?
Well, thank you for that question. I have the pleasure of chairing, as the Chair of Trustees of a small social welfare charity in the community I represent, Malmesbury. So that charity deals with people who are facing very real and very tough financial challenges. So I not only sympathise, I absolutely empathise with it. But look, I think I've taken you through the challenges that this council faces, and that's why we're having to raise the council tax, but not beyond that 4.99%. I think you're going to see a lot in the media in the coming weeks of other local authorities, some of them perhaps around us, who are having to put up their council tax by far more than that. I'm determined, as is Ian and the whole cabinet, that we don't do that, and we drive efficiency and value for money with every opportunity that there is for us to be able to do both. But if we don't raise that council tax, there are some very uncomfortable choices to be made, and the people that will suffer will be the most vulnerable in our communities. And that's not who I think you are in asking this question, and it's certainly not who I am or we are. I think we all need to know we need to protect those people. Now, as to the individual fees and charges that we're increasing, they're going up by the rate of inflation, and we can't ignore that. Inflation is hitting hard on this council, just like it is in every family, on every individual. So those increases are proportionate and appropriate. If we could have avoided them, we would, but you've seen the financial position we face, and therefore they're unavoidable. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Gavin. So the next question is also for you. Oh no, apologies actually for this one's actually for Ian. You say you're investing in roads, but when will we start to see a difference? Some road surfaces aren't that great.
Yes, thank you for the question. I have to say, anybody involved in local politics knows when you knock on somebody's door and ask them what the big issues are, potholes is always number one. And so I have to say that the view that we have in terms of addressing the issue of potholes never, ever, nor should it go away. I have to say, we've got some fantastic figures in recent months, which indicates that the number of potholes being reported has dropped significantly. Of course, as is the nature of life, the number of reports of roadworks, as I know to my cost over the past couple of days, has increased. So I think that to some extent this is seasonal. And so when you head into the winter, we get a lot of rain, particularly these days, which has a significant effect in terms of the number of potholes that are created. But what is important, again, is we're putting our money where our mouth is. We've made significant progress over the last 2 years, and I always credit the last administration where I think it's appropriate with the investment they introduced, which was £20 million on preventative maintenance, which includes resurfacing to prevent potholes forming. This is in addition to the grant we received from the Department of Transport to undertake repairs and fix potholes, and this work has been reflected in the latest Department for Transport assessment, which we heard, I think, from a week or so ago, which rates us green, which is the highest possible rating. So the independent view is that we are doing relatively well, and the budget that we're proposing for next year will have an additional £5 million spent every year for the next 3 years to improve the position. But I completely understand that if you're heading out in your car and you're hitting pothole after pothole, whatever I say to you isn't going to change your view, and nor should it. So we have to work hard, we have to work smart, we have to continue our focus. I spent a few hours with one of our Bobcat machines. I think we've got 3 of them across the county, which are specifically designed to very effectively deal with potholes and keep the material in for the long term. So there are a range of things we're doing, but I completely accept that we must do more. There's no complacency. And frankly, if they're not improving, we'll need to find more money to ensure that they do improve.
Thank you very much, Ian. So that's all of the questions we've received. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted them. Ian, I'm going to hand back to you to bring tonight's event to a close.
Yes, Kerry, thank you very much indeed. We hope tonight's event has been useful. Money's always a difficult subject because, bluntly, there's never enough money to do all the things that we, and I suspect you, would want us to do. And we absolutely recognise that, and this has been said several times, that our principal source of income is you. I open my council tax demand every year, as you do, and slightly shiver at the additional costs. So that's not a comfortable place to be. But if we absolutely want to deliver really good services to our older members of the community, to young people with special educational needs, and to fill the potholes, then we have to have the money to do it. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted a question. I always find at events like this that I think are the best questions after the meeting's finished. So if you want to make contact with us with further questions, further thoughts, please do so. They will be read, of course they will, and they will be replied. And again, as I said earlier, nobody's got a monopoly on great ideas. We welcome your input. So we value open dialogue. I think Gavin mentioned the extensive consultation we undertook. I think probably record-breaking consultation in terms of the numbers involved. And it's really important to talk about the issues because it affects all of us where it really matters, in our pocket. So the budget, again, is a draft and is there for amendment. No final decisions have been made. We'll be discussing the budget and debating the budget, which I suspect will be a record-breaking event in terms of its length. Full council on the 24th of February at 10:30. I hesitate to say this because the room isn't particularly large, but everybody's welcome to attend in person or online. And that meeting will be broadcast live. But again, a word of warning, bring a cup of cocoa with you because we could be going into the night because these issues are terribly important. Tonight's session has been recorded, so if you wanted to watch anything back, if you feel you want to, then that would be excellent. Or share the recording with people who haven't been able to join us this evening, then please do. And we'll be making the recording available on YouTube, our social media channels and our newsletter. So please look out for those. I'd also like to take the opportunity to explain the benefits of signing up to receive your council tax electronically, which is one of our campaigns at the moment. This saves us money. This saves you money. The cost of sending mail through the post, as you all know, is extraordinarily effective. It might be effective, but it's extraordinarily expensive. I think sending a simple letter, forget the postage, but simply the printing to every household, cost you and me about £45,000. So please do sign up. It's convenient for you as residents, better for the environment, reduces the amount of paper we use, and absolutely critically saves us money. If you want to make the switch to e-billing, then we've posted a link for you to do so. So please do that, because that helps all of us. And also, if you want to keep up with Wiltshire Council news and information, we really welcome the dialogue, the engagement. Then please do subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Head over to wiltshire.gov.uk and you'll find a link to sign up on our homepage. All the good news, all the challenging news, but it's all there. So this just leaves me to say a very big thank you to the team here. But on behalf of Gavin, Kerry and myself, thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the evening, but please do give us your thoughts between now and the 24th of February. Thank you very much and good night.